the latest on this, there was a story a couple days ago. Roger Goodell at the draft planted a little nugget that said, hey, I would like the 18-game season. I would like that. I would like the 18-game season. So we're now being told that the owners, quote, largely support, close quote, largely support, that's the key part of this, a proposal and really an effort, not a grassroots effort. It's more than that. It's high cotton by Roger Goodell, the commissioner, to expand the regular season to 18 games. The league and the owners may now attempt, may is a weasel word, but they're expected to attempt to add extra regular season games well before they're legally able to do it. Now, 2031, which is scarily not all that far away, 2031 is I don't even know this is 2024, but that's 7 years away. So that is when the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement between the NFL and the Players Association, is set to expire, and that would be the time to say, okay, we're going to play 18 games. The change would need a majority approval by the players. Keep in mind, the last time they added more games, the union did approve the expansion of the regular season with a 51.5% vote, 1.5% more than was needed, barely, by the skin on your chinny chin chin. They got it done, and Goodell has discussed his plans for expansion. Some YouTuber, some influencer he talked about. So let us discuss the question. Owners supporting Roger Goodell and the 18-game schedule plan. What are your thoughts on that? So I've got Bell Bottoms, Looney, and Camelot. And we will combine all of these things together, and we are going to put the biscuit in the basket is what we're going to do. Now, to kick off, Roger the Dodger, Roger Goodell, who is, for all intents and purposes, just a mouthpiece for the owners. So the idea this story would bounce around saying the owners largely support an 18-game regular season. Hello, Goodell is a toady for the owners. Like, what are we doing here? He works as a conduit. He works as a conduit to them. He doesn't speak unless he gets the talking points memo from Robert Kraft and Jerry Jones and all the other blue blood owners in the NFL. And so if you've listened to this show at all over the years, you know more than other people that don't listen that the NFL schedule story, going to 18 games for the NFL schedule, this is a bell-bottoms and disco story. Ergo, in the Wayback Machine, every so often, friend of the show, a man named Fred Dreyer. We should get Fred back in here. Fred played in the NFL a million years ago. Fred was a TV star back when people actually watched TV in the 80s. But Fred was in here. He played for the LA Rams for a number of years in the 70s, and he retired in the early 80s. So he's an older guy. But Fred has told the story about when he was part of the Players Association, the commissioner of the NFL at the time, and the NFL wasn't very popular in comparison to today, but the commissioner, this guy named Pete Rozelle. A lot of stories about Pete Rozelle I've heard over the years. But anyway, Pete Rozelle was the commissioner at the NFL at the time, and he and a group of owners wanted to play 18 games in the 1970s. That's how far back this goes. So this has been going on for a very long time. Now, at the time that proposal was made to play 18 games, they were playing 14 games. And the NFL went to 16 games in 1978, not to give you a history lesson and bore the hell out of you, but so they've been playing 16 games, and then they switched a couple years back to 17, and the expectation is that they're going to get to eventually 20. They don't want to stop at 18. They want 20. And as somebody that does a talk show for a living, mostly about football, and has, by the way, this last year we had a little TV show, I'm all for it. I would like to see 50 weeks of football. I'll give them a few weeks off, but I'd like to see 50 weeks of football. I fully support that. And who says no? Now, the NFL's always been concerned. I say this with a wink and a nod because they're not that concerned because they'd risk it. The NFL would like to avoid the saturation point. You know, where there's too much of something and you're just like overwhelmed. You're like, oh, it's not that important. It's not special. If there's NFL every week and it goes on for more than half the year, is it really that special? It's like, well, if you miss a game, it's like it's not that big a deal. Right now, if you miss a game, it's like, man, that sucks. If you miss a game when there's 25 weeks of the NFL, it's like, well, that's fine. But is it possible to get to that saturation point? We'll find out. And typically, the way you get the players to sign off, you just throw a few more shekels at the players, and they're like, okay, we're good. We'll take we'll give them a couple days off. Or my favorite is when they got rid of padded practices in a collective bargaining agreement. They limited the padded practices. They said it was out of an abundance of caution, but the reality is the owners don't care if the players practice or not in pads. They're just worried about the games and the revenue, as you would expect them to be. Now, furthermore, we go now to the Mile High City, where the draft fallout continues. The microscope is out. The word on the street out of Denver is that Broncos head coach, the very boisterous Sean Payton, thinks that Bo knows football. He thinks that Bo Nix is as good as any quarterback that was picked in the 2024 NFL Draft. Is this an outrageous take by Sean Payton? Is this a ultimate I'm the fanboy take by Sean Payton? So I have an unpopular opinion. I don't totally disagree. Now, I didn't have Bo Nix on my big board as a can't-miss suspect. I didn't have that. But I'm a jaded realist about the NFL Draft, and I'm pretty cynical about all of these players. The fail rate is so high. It is so extreme. The fail rate, it's a glorified guessing game. It's pin the tail on the donkey, and there's a lot of donkeys. It really becomes a loony situation. There used to be a guy that worked here. I forget his name, and I think I just said it, and might have been a sidekick on a TV show who often would reference what he called the chaos theory of the world, that nobody knows anything. The NFL Draft is the epitome, the personification of nobody knows anything. That you can have a player who was Mr. Irrelevant go to the 49ers, be a great system quarterback, Brock Purdy, the perfect system guy for the 49ers, when they traded 90 draft picks to the Miami Dolphins to draft their forever quarterback and then realized he can't play. And so they gave him away to the Dallas Cowboys. But that's the NFL. And the way I look at this, if we got one of those raffle drums, you know what I'm talking about, where you put the pinballs, or not the pinballs, the ping pong balls. You put those in the raffle thing. You spin the raffle. And we put Caleb Williams on one of the balls, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, all these quarterbacks. And we spun the metal raffle drum. And then we took the ball out. We would have just as good a chance when that name popped out of being right as these teams that spend thousands of dollars sending scouts around and watching players in the draft. There is a dimension where Bo Nix turns out to be a great player and plays very well. And I know one thing is for sure. Sean Payton is going to run the same offense he ran last year, where they spoon-fed Russell Wilson, and stupid people said Russ played pretty well, and they didn't watch the games and didn't realize that they ran as dumbed down an offense as they could, and Russ actually wasn't that good. But you can artificially enhance, assuming Bo Nix is not the village idiot, you can artificially enhance the stats. Stat stuffing, certain things. Bo Nix at Oregon played very well. At Auburn, he didn't play well. So who is the real Bo Nix? We don't know. All right, last thing, quickly, we go to Dallas. Why? Because I am contractually obligated to spend at least a little bit of time every day on the Dallas Cowboys. Otherwise, the ratings for the podcast and the show will go down. The latest chapters from Jerry's world come out of the mouth of Micah Parsons. That is a player that was compared to Lawrence Taylor. He was the greatest player in the NFL for the first 2 weeks of the season. Unfortunately for the Cowboys and Micah Parsons, they had to continue playing games. They had another 15 games, and that's where the problem happened. So Micah Parsons is disgusted with the Eagles' patented tush push. How do we know this? He talked to Kevin Hart. That's a comedian who's doing the Tom Brady roast, which I think is this weekend. The comedian Kevin Hart on, I guess, a podcast. Everyone's got a podcast. And Parsons took a thinly veiled cheap shot. That's a low blow at the Eagles. And Hart had said he wanted to see Philly. He's a Philly guy. He wanted to see Philadelphia on these primetime games and all that. And Micah Parsons responded. He said, so you could just push your quarterback, he said, just push your quarterback in the end zone. Nobody wants to watch it, Micah Parsons said, close quote. All right, so Micah Parsons, it was a fun thing, right? But Micah Parsons, there's truth in every joke. So Micah Parsons mocking the Eagles' tush push. He says, nobody wants to watch it. What is your reaction to that? All right, so my reaction, it is on brand for the Cowboys. It's perfect for Dallas. The Cowboys are like Camelot. They prioritize style over substance. And say what you want about the tush push, and I'm surprised it hasn't been outlawed yet. I was assuming the position, the NFL was going to get rid of it. They haven't done it yet. It's a rugby play. It's not very exciting to watch, but it's effective. It has been the most effective play for the Eagles that they've had the last couple of years. So Philly's tushy-pushy is ugly, but again, it's effective. So would you rather have something that's not that sexy but works, or would you like to be like the Dallas Cowboys, who have a lot of razzmatazz and then shrivel up in big games? So which would you rather have? Now, we'll see whether or not the tushy-pushy works again now that Jason Kelce will be boring everyone on television. We'll find out whether or not that will be a success.